Study Session 7 Problems of Sexuality and Gender Identity. Introduction. This study session explains psychological disturbances often associated with the sexuality and gender orientation of human beings. These may include disorder or sexual dysfunction and abnormality of sexual preference. At the end of this study session, you should be able to explain pedophilia as a psychological disturbance and point out the forms of abnormal sexual practices. Sexual dysfunctions. Sexual dysfunctions are conditions resulting from inability of a person to enjoy normal coitus. In men, sexual dysfunction refers to repeated impairment of normal sexual interest and/or performance. In women, it refers to repeated inability to achieve sexual satisfaction. What is regarded as normal sexual intercourse, and therefore what is thought to be impoverished or unsatisfactory one, depends in part on the expectations of the two people concerned. For example, when the woman is regularly unable to achieve orgasm, her partner regards it as normal, while another may see it as abnormal. Problems of sexual dysfunction are classified in the following ways. 1. Sexual acts that result in pain, vaginismus and dyspareunia in women, and painful ejaculation in men. 2. The genital response, that is, erectile impotence in men and lack of arousal in women. 3. Orgasm, that is, premature or retarded ejaculation in men, orgasmic dysfunction in women. Vaginismus in women is a condition of spasm of the vaginal muscles which causes pain when intercourse is attempted and where there is no physical lesion causing the pain. The spasm is usually part of phobic response associated with fears about penetration and may be made worse by an inexperienced partner. Etiology of sexual dysfunctions will include lack of sexual drive, anxiety, a physical or psychiatric illness. Abnormality of sexual preference, paraphilias. Sexual deviations, otherwise known as sexual perversions, refer to sexual behaviors that are socially disapproved. It is often a classification of people rather than diseases or forms of behavior. Paraphilias can be classified into 2: abnormalities of preference for sexual objects and abnormalities in the preference of sexual acts. Abnormality of preference for sexual objects. This involves intercourse or achievement of sexual excitement with an object other than another adult. Such objects may be an inanimate, as in fetishism and transvestic fetishism, or may be a child, pedophilia, or an animal, zoophilia. Fetishism refers to the practice of achieving sexual excitement with inanimate objects or parts of the human body that do not have direct sexual associations. It is not uncommon for men to be aroused by particular items of clothing, such as stockings, or part of the female body that does not have direct sexual associations. The condition is abnormal when the behavior takes precedence over the usual patterns of sexual intercourse. Transvestite fetishism refers to the occasional wearing of a few articles of clothing of the opposite sex to complete cross-dressing. Cross-dressing usually begins about the time of puberty. The person usually starts by putting on only a few garments of the opposite sex. As time goes on, he adds more. Eventually, he may dress up entirely in clothes of the opposite sex. Transvestic fetishists may experience sexual arousal when cross-dressing, and the behavior often terminates with masturbation. Pedophilia. This is a repeated sexual activity or fantasy of such activity with prepubertal children and as a preferred or exclusive method of obtaining sexual excitement. It is almost exclusively a disorder of men. A pedophilic person usually chooses a child aged between 6 years and puberty. The child may be of the opposite sex, that is, heterosexual pedophilia. Necrophilia. This is an extremely rare condition of sexual arousal and excitement obtained through sexual intercourse with a dead body. Occasionally, there have been reported legal trials of men who murdered and then attempted intercourse with their victims. Other abnormalities in the preference of sexual objects are zoophilia, otherwise known as bestiality or bestiosexuality. This is a condition where animals are used exclusively in obtaining repeated sexual excitement. Preference of sexual acts. The second group of abnormality of sexual preference involves variations in the behavior that is carried out to obtain sexual arousal. Generally, the acts are directed towards other adults, but sometimes children are involved. Included in this category are exhibitionism, sexual sadism, sexual masochism, and voyeurism. Others include frotteurism, coprophilia, coprophagia, and urophilia. Exhibitionism. Exhibitionism is the repeated exposing of the genitals to unprepared strangers for the purpose of achieving sexual excitement, but without any attempt at further sexual activity with the other person. The urge could be persistent or episodic. The act of exposure is usually preceded by a feeling of mounting tension. When in this state of tension, he characteristically seeks to evoke a strong emotional reaction from the other person, generally surprise and shock. Sexual sadism. As a phrase, this term was first used by Marquis de Sade between 1774 and 1819. This is achieving sexual arousal habitually and in preference to heterosexual intercourse by inflicting pain on another person by bondage or by humiliation. Beating, whipping, and tying are common sadistic activities. Repeated acts may be with a partner who is a masochist or a prostitute who is paid to take part. Sadism may be a component of homosexual as well as heterosexual acts. Rare cases of sexual sadism towards animals have also been reported. Sexual masochism. This is an achievement of sexual excitement as a preferred or exclusive practice through the experience of suffering. The condition is named after Leopold von Sacher-Masoch between 1836 and 1905, an Austrian novelist who described sexual gratification from the experience of pain. Voyeurism or peeping. This is a derivation of sexual excitement by observing sexual activities of others. Voyeurism is also known as coprophilia or peeping. The voyeurs may also spy on women who are undressing or without clothes for their sexual excitement. The voyeur does not attempt any sexual activity with the woman, but masturbation is always followed. Voyeurism is common among heterosexual men with inadequate heterosexual activities. Frotteurism. This refers to a form of sexual excitement by applying or rubbing the male genital against another person, usually a stranger, and unknown participants in a crowded place, such as a bus. Coprophilia. This is sexual arousal induced by thinking about watching the act of defecation. Coprophagia. This is sexual arousal induced following the eating of feces. Urophilia. This is sexual arousal obtained by watching the act of urination, or being urinated upon, or by self-urination. Study session summary. In this study session, we examine the psychological disturbances often associated with the sexuality and gender orientation of human beings. These include disorder or sexual dysfunctions and abnormality of sexual preference. End of study session 7. Thanks.